Hi everyone, super excited to be here in the studio with Jacko today. So I am Rachelle, from owner of the Your Happy Place brand and creator of the Positive Mindset Challenge. And I'd like to introduce my co-host, who's normally sitting here beside me in the studio, but she's just had Bubs number 3 just a month ago. So she's joining us from home today, Alana from your success team. Would you like to say something?
Hey everybody, it's nice to be back online. And we'll see if little Miss makes an appearance, but she's having cuddles with Dad, so she should be all good. So I'm really excited for today's chat and to get back into mindset talks, because gosh, do I need it. Sleep deprivation, you forget what it does to the nervous system and the wiring. So I'm really looking forward to this injection, and I hope it adds a lot of value to everyone's week.
Awesome, and it's a huge pleasure to have Jacko here today. I'd like to introduce Glen Jackson. So as many people will know, I'm sure everyone knows, Glen Jackson has a phenomenal background in the rugby arena. So 100 games, over 100 games played for the Chiefs and Bay, and 100 games plus for Saracens as well in the UK, and 100 games refereeing as an international first class referee. So I don't think anyone else can put their name to that in New Zealand. You're definitely the first, and I think you probably are still the only one in New Zealand. So huge pleasure to have you here, Jacko. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Shell, and obviously great work you're doing here. So it's happy to be here and chat about my life and what it means to have a good mindset. So.
Awesome. Thank you, Jacko. So I've known you maybe for coming up about 10 years now, and what's always struck me about you is that you always have a positive outlook. You always have a positive attitude on life, and that seems to flow into everything you do. So, and also you're a very gracious person, a really great host. So I know there's a lot of people out there, especially in the last few years, who have sort of struggled to find that mindset space and to sort of pick themselves up when they're feeling down. So hopefully today you're going to share a few of your gold nuggets about what tools and techniques you use, or what things you do to pick yourself up when you need it along the way as well. So thank you, Jacko. So you're a cup half full kind of person. Have you always been that way?
Yeah, I'd say I'm pretty optimistic around life and what you're here for. Obviously, there's always situations in your life that don't go the way you want it to be. I think I've always been strong with friends, and I find they're very important in everyone's life, and family, of course. So yeah, I guess that's how we met. You're obviously a very optimistic person too, and we lived in an area where people just enjoyed each other's company, and so that always helped. And half my life's been probably on the road, been away from the family, which when I get home makes it important that I catch up with friends. And my wife got up and says it'd be nice just to have a bit of time with her, but I like having people around and making everyone have a good time. So it's as you said, it's glass half full. There's certain times, obviously, in my career that hasn't always been like that, but I try and look on the bright side of things.
Yeah, amazing. That's awesome. So coaching, going back to coaching grassroots rugby, so Tupuna Rugby Club, Jacko, you're always just the coach that was able to bring out the best in the kids. Your mindset, positivity flowed into the kids. Was there any particular style that you used or philosophies you used with the kids that helped to bring out the best in them?
Look, I think rugby's an important tool for me. It has been part of my life. Well, my whole life has been pretty much based around rugby. So Tupuna is obviously a fantastic club. What I like about it is obviously your involvement, my wife's involvement, Fiona's involvement, Jenny's involvement. A lot of great ladies are involved in the club, which means it's great for the kids. So I think my philosophy with the kids was always they're there to have a good time. You got to have some sort of structure and I guess a little bit of discipline about what you're trying to do. I quite liked theming things around why they're there. And if they're going to turn up and want to play rugby or any sport, then you got to make it worth their time. So we had a great bunch of boys, a great bunch of parents that always got involved, and but not only in our team. I thought the whole club had that sort of philosophy of being there to have a good time, and as you know, we didn't always have the greatest team, but we just had good fun when we were there and ready to play.
Yeah, and I think
that's so cool. It's so cross transferable. Like I feel like I don't play rugby, and I'm like there's just so many lessons in there that's just cross transferable to life.
Absolutely, absolutely, and you could
Yeah.
really see your coaching style play out with the kids on the field. You know, you had an ability to install that belief in them, and that no matter what their ability was really, and you could see that play on the field, which was really cool to see.
Yeah, and like I said, I think what we're talking about here is obviously mindset. So like sport in general can bring out kids that aren't in a good place, that, you know, they can always find a happy place on the sports field. It doesn't matter what sport it is. So if they're giving up their time, parents are giving up their time to drop them off there, then you've got to make it worthwhile and make sure they're enjoying it so they can continue with sport later in life.
I think that's a really great message for other coaches out there too of kids sports, because it's so easy for the coach to get caught up in the winning and have that influence their style of coaching, rather than there for a good time, there because it's good for you, good for your mindset, good for everyone, good community and good feel. And I think that's probably the most important thing about kids rugby. So if there was any grassroots or young sports coaches listening right now, what advice would you give them around how they should base their learning styles, teaching styles?
Well, I think you've probably nailed it there. It's not about winning. Quite often if a kid's team loses, the only person that hangs on to that is the coaches and the parents. You know, the kids move on pretty quick to like, what, whose house are we going to now for a swim or a barbecue?
Yeah.
So I think the biggest learning is that, you know, what are you there for? You're there for to win, and then probably that's not the right thing. You're there just to make sure kids are in a safe place first of all, and then enjoying what they're doing to like I said, to carry on with what they're doing, and then hopefully they'll make some good friends out of it, long life friends, because as I said right at the beginning, I think one of the most positive things you can have is a good bunch of friends, and again, sport can bring that out if you get it right.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So as a player, when you were a player yourself, what effect did your mindset have on your performance on the field?
It changed. I was a pretty average teammate, I think, because when you play sport at a highest level, winning did become a big thing for me. I guess probably more the 80 minutes afterwards, I could move on pretty quick, but I don't know if I was always the greatest teammate, because I wanted the best for us as a team, and I definitely over strived, I suppose, with and wanting everyone to do well instead of just looking after what I did. So I think that improved later in life around understanding who I was and not being so competitive with each other, but just more competitive for myself. So so that helped, I think, in terms of the playing side of things. And then finishing playing into refereeing was easy because I didn't have a teammate then, so I had to really do what I was doing. And it's obviously, anyone that knows reffing, it's not that thankful job, and you never win. So actually it was just about, okay, now what are you doing this for? I did it because I enjoyed it, and again made good friends, and that's again pretty much back to grassroots stuff. It was about why you're doing what you're doing for.
Yeah, awesome, I love it.
It seems like you've got a really great theme of having really amazing perspective, like both with the coaching, yourself, with the kids, and then with the refereeing. Did you have it? Have you had that perspective the whole way, or is that the old wisdom that's come with time and bruises?
No, I think we had a pretty good upbringing, I suppose. It was good parents, and I lived next to a rugby field, so it was always about the people that you played with when you were young. I reckon I've got a real rubbish memory. That helps. So something.
That does help. That's awesome.
Just can crack on pretty quickly around things that aren't great, or you have those bad moments. You can just move on pretty quick. So and I guess as I said at the beginning, pretty optimistic about what we're here for and what we're trying to get out of life. So it's a good way of looking at it.
Love it. So when you were playing for the Bay and you took the shield off Auckland and had a week sort of celebrating that moment, then to turn around and face Waikato to defend the shield. Perhaps it might be fair to say you might not have been physically in the best condition ever after your week of celebrating, but what did you take into that game that allowed you to hold on to that shield? What mindset did you have?
It's a good question, obviously, especially coming from Waikato girls, that sure. But we celebrated well. It was a good thing, obviously, the Bay never winning it, so we celebrated too long. We had great coaches and Vern Cotter and Joe Schmidt, so we sort of turned up to one training, thinking, geez, we're not in good shape here because we're still half pissed. But we moved on pretty quick, and he actually said, just go home, boys. Come back tomorrow and make sure you're ready, because again, back to the competitive side of things. If we lost, it was the shortest Shield tenure ever. So we've gone from winning it to possibly having a record of the shortest period ever. But I played for Waikato for years, and so they were a much better team than us on paper, and I think that was the mindset, that we're a bit of an underdog. We don't want to be embarrassed. We got a full house coming to watch. So all those things where you could either sort of dive under those and let it affect you, or you can make it the positive things out of things. The reason why we're here, and it was still winning the Shield against Auckland was great, but beating them Waikato was the best thing ever. So
nice.
I think we all had that same attitude. A little bit more, there weren't many Chiefs players in our Bay team, so it was sort of like big brother versus the little brother, and we just wanted to show what we could do for this area, and this area was really awesome getting behind it. So it was a great little time.
Awesome, and you must have made them so proud too. Like, what a moment! That's awesome.
Yeah, and I think Tauranga especially. I mean, definitely Rotorua as well, but Tauranga, really was a rugby town for a few weeks, which is definitely not normally the case.
Yeah, awesome. I love it. So as a player, did you have any particular routine you went through before you went on the field? Is there like a breakdown? Obviously, you see guys with their headphones in, or is there a routine you go through to put you in the right frame of mind for taking the field?
Yeah, well, no, I didn't really have too much, because again, I'll probably forget what I did last week, so it didn't work. So instead of having any rituals, I had no rituals, because it was like, well, who knows? You're going to get a puncher on the way to the game. My son, every time we play, he listened to one song, and I said, well, that's good. The song, you shouldn't lose the song, so that's all right. I think one of the things, because I was a goal kicker, and I've tried to help a lot of young kids around this, is every time I kicked, I said, you're good enough and you've done the work. So the two things I always used to say. So you're good enough, that's why you're here, and you can bluff yourself the good enough stuff. But the second thing is I've done the work.
Yes.
And if I hadn't done the work during the week, then I couldn't really bluff myself. So I knew that meant I had to prepare well, and I said that purely because I know how much I had to do during the week to perform on the Saturday. So it was two little bits of self-talk, I suppose. That one of them was, okay, you're here, that's why you're here, but the other one was because you know what you've done beforehand to be here. So that really helped. That took a long time, probably into my career, where I could work that out, because you actually don't know if you're good enough sometimes. So, but I think rituals, I'm not sure that's great, but I think self-talk and self-help is a good way of looking at what you need to do in sport.
Yeah, I love that.
That's amazing. Such an incredible message. Do you notice, like, from the work that you've done with kids, do you notice once they've learned, because obviously you got that much later on in your career, can you see the shift when, someone who's learning from you picks that mantra up and starts putting that into practice? Can you see the impact that it has on them, even if they might not?
I just hope, the main thing I hope, especially if we talk about kids, but also the Fiji Drua, which is the first team professional, then you have to do the work. So, it doesn't matter if it's sport or not. If you haven't done the work, you might win every now and then, or you might get a good mark, but you've got to actually carry on doing the work. You might bluff one or two, but if you don't carry on putting work in, then you're never going to always consistently get success, I suppose, or whatever success looks like. Doesn't mean you're winning, it's just your success. So it's good. I think if we go back to junior rugby, the boys always turned up early and they worked on what they needed to work on, and they had fun doing it because each other knew what they were going to do. So that certainly helps in junior rugby.
Huge too, because your brain believes what you tell it, right? So that self-talk is just massive for pulling yourself out of a funk or getting yourself in the right mindset or psyching yourself up for something. And I love the double banger that you had, with you're good enough, that's why you're here, you've been chosen, that's why you're here. Even though you may not feel it that week or, whatever's going on, you're there for a reason. And then you've done the work, just reminds you that you've done the work and makes you accountable to do the work the following week. So that's awesome. Yeah, really cool. Love that.
And they're really simple. Like, they're not messages that you have to be like, shoot, what's the thing I'm supposed to tell myself? Like, because I think sometimes that's the thing with self-talk. Hey, if you go down the rabbit hole of like learning mantras or whatever, you're like, oh, and I'll do this and I'll do this, and then you start and you're like, oh, I've forgotten what I was going to tell myself I was great at.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
And then you're like, I can't be great because I've forgotten the thing.
and you know, goal kicking's probably like some other sports, golf for instance. If you start trying to think about, right, put your foot to here and keep your head down, and then you know which order is it again, and then you know then you're actually forgetting why you're here. So unfortunately, you know, I love golf and I've tried that self-talking golf and that hasn't worked. And I also know I haven't done the work, so I try and bluff myself, but that doesn't work at all. So.
Yeah, there's got to be an element of truth in it. It's got to be believable to you, That's
exactly.
the difference with self-talk.
I really love that you can't bluff yourself, because that's so true. Like you can trick the world a lot, hey, but you can't bluff yourself. So there's that real like just the mirror being held up that's so important that we all have, like regardless of sports or life or how old we are. I think it's really important too.
And then the other thing is, if you haven't done the work, don't say it. So just say you're good enough. Leave the second one off.
They won't go well otherwise.
Good advice. It's solid.
Yeah. So you've been a phenomenally successful international referee. You know, one of the best in the world. And so, how important was your mindset to your career as a ref when you're on the field?
I think refereeing's a strange one, because it doesn't matter how prepared you are, you actually don't know what's coming. And like I said, there's no real winning in refereeing. Like you can have a good game, anyone just says, well, you should have a good game.
Good job, you should have done that too.
Or you're rubbish, and then any grandmother wants to have a crack at you in the supermarket. So it's sort of, you're never winning. So you come off the field thinking, well, I think the good thing is, yes, a lot of young referees probably haven't experienced, luckily enough, or unlucky or whatever, but professional sports. So I knew there was that's why you keep score, isn't it? There's a winner and a loser. There's no keeping score in the refereeing. So I knew that I wanted to do it. I knew I wanted to challenge myself, and so that challenge was, well, same thing really. I was either going to make it or I won't. So it's I was very lucky for the opportunity through New Zealand Rugby to have a go at refereeing, and I've done coaching now and playing, and refereeing is still probably the most enjoyable, funnily enough, in terms of what you get out of it. So the 80 minutes are tough, but the stuff out of the game is awesome, and there's a lot of people who are officials, umpires or referees, and there's a big group of people there where people are more happy to talk to you as a referee than they are as a player,
Oh, wow.
So
okay.
I think they feel that you're more open, and you're part of that, and it's not always obviously positive stuff. They're happy to tell you how rubbish you were, but as a player, people probably stood away from you a little bit more, say if you're an average player, so. So again, it was 10 years of a lot of hard learning. We had a lot of help through New Zealand Rugby around mindset, and probably not enough because people don't know actually what it means, but what we took out of it was sleep. I know you talked about sleep, Alana, there before, so, how important that is. We were travelling 180 nights a year, so we were always in planes or different beds, so sleep was a really big thing around trying to get that right, get your performance right and stay positive.
Yeah, absolutely, awesome.
And I would imagine 180 nights away from home a year, and you touched on it before, that's a big amount of time away from family, and so that impacts on your mindset as well. And so you sort of touched on when you were home and all in. How else did you work on that? Because I think sometimes we can underestimate how important family is as a support infrastructure for our minds. And there's a lot of people who haven't seen family for a number of years, or just, we now don't always live close by people. Have you got any pearls of wisdom that someone else could learn from perhaps not having to be away from home for 180 nights a year to enjoy family a bit more?
Well, I've got a pretty awesome wife, so that probably helps. She's been around the sport the whole time. So there's a transition period, we call it, when I sort of come back from being away for a month. So it's about, I guess, the communication around it. I'm probably not the best communicator with her at times because, there's you don't want to always bring stuff home from work, but she's awesome around it, so I probably should do that more. Well, I know I should do that more. But I guess it's the big thing is what I just said there, communication. Kids have been awesome around it. and the one thing around the 180 nights away, I'm home for 180 nights, you know, so it's a bit different to a normal job, whereas when I'm home. So at times I could be home for 3 weeks, and hence why I can do the junior rugby. So also I think the biggest thing that I learned, which we didn't have a great help around it, was preparing our year, so we knew, and we didn't know that. You know, it was actually quite disorganised about when we knew we were going to be away, but I think that's the difference between a player and a referee. A referee just can be told they're going to South Africa in 2 weeks, versus at least when you're playing, your schedule's pretty structured for the year.
But there's there's a couple of like really cross transferable insights in there, right? Which is, when you're off work, be off work. Like, even if it's not for 180 nights, like even if it's just coming home at 6:30 p.m, like leave it, like, and then be totally home. Because I think sometimes our brains don't let us do that. And then I think that whole having certainty in an uncertain world does impact. So even if you factor in what certainty can I pull in this uncertain deck of cards that I've got with the nature of my work, and you mitigate it.
Yeah, no, and you're right around being off work. I'm off. It was easy for refereeing because no one wanted to get in touch with you unless they're telling you how rubbish you are. My new job coaching is, even the kids are like, geez, my phone goes all the time, because it's gone back to looking after myself to now there's 50 people in a squad of coaches, and the phone doesn't really stop. So it's about getting the balance, as you said there, around when do you actually want to have some time off versus when are you back working. So it's a tough one, that one, obviously, with everyone being busy. COVID, as we all know, is probably showing that you can be at home a lot more than you think you can, and get your balance right around home and work.
Yeah, and I think it helps because you and Fee and the kids, you're a close-knit family, and you're with Fee's communication with you, and you guys check in, pretty much daily, when you're away, checking in all the time, and you're keeping up to date with what's going on with the family. So that must be a huge help as well for you, for missing the family when you're away. We've got pretty positive kids as well, which helps, and they enjoy school and enjoy being away. They're hardly never not at school, so they like sport, so it makes them easier to talk to. Yeah, absolutely. There's always something to say. I love it. Yeah.
Hey, Rachelle, can I pinch the next question? Just because for everyone watching or listening on the replay, Rachelle's pre-prepped some questions, and I really want to jump to this one, which is around your time with Fijian culture, and just, I think particularly, like, it's August, it's winter, like, I think those who have hopped on a plane to a tropical island this year are in fits of delight, but that must just have been such a beautiful space and place to be. What insights have you gleaned from your time in such a sunny, beautiful part of the world, and with such sunny, beautiful, dispositioned people and the culture? What lessons have you learned?
First of all, as everyone knows, it's a beautiful place. So I feel very blessed that I've been able to be part of a first team. So the first team to play in Super Rugby is Fiji and Drua, and so we had a really tough year. Well, we didn't even live in Fiji. We lived in Australia because of COVID, and travelled heaps, and was just living out of a suitcase from hotel to hotel, but with great people. So the Fijian culture is what you see, and I hope I don't offend any Fijian around this, but I found out they're very structured in what's important in life. So religion's number one, family's number two, and then rugby's number three, and it's definitely that order. So it was awesome to be part of I'm not a religious person at all, but like to be part of a religious society where every night they'd refer the book to a song to their life to rugby, and it was structured around that, and it was a great thing off the field to be part of. On the field, we had a lot of difficulties in terms of how we wanted to play, because they love playing footy just by throwing it around, which I loved. It was so good to see them trying everything, and when we finally got back to Fiji, played a couple of games there, then the crowd was awesome. They for a little team, they had the biggest biggest season crowd in Super Rugby. So it shows you that the community and the country love footy, but there's a real structure around where it sits in their life, and also how their family situation is situated between how they are in the village. So they could be a chief or a spokesman or so it's still a very structured society, but a very happy one at the same time.
And so gratitude.
Chance to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it sounds like gratitude is a huge part of their life. You know, obviously the religious side of it, gratitude is so tied up with religion. You know, and you even see them when they get tries and things. You know, they're thanking something. It's and so which is huge for your mindset. So the Fijian definitely have that beautiful sunny disposition, and you know they just seem to smile all the time. So yeah, that was one of our key things is how do they get so happy? How are they so happy all the time? And is that part of being grateful? Is it part of being full up with their family, because their family is so important, and taking care of those core needs first before they take care of themselves? What do you think?
Yeah,
What's their secret?
I'm not sure, but what I've sort of come across is they were at times real horrible to coach, and I mean that in a nice way, because you tell them one thing, you think they're sorted, and then they just forget it. And I think that's why they're so happy. It's like we, as a European culture, I suppose. What's for breakfast tomorrow? And then, I better go to the supermarket because I've got dinner in 3 nights' time. What are we going to have? Someone's coming around. They don't even care what's for lunch. It's like, it's lunchtime. Right, what are we going to do? So they're
in the moment.
They're right there in the moment. And as you know, they have horrendous disasters at times. But you don't often hear of it. They just, rebuild again, and away you go. And it's like, this has happened, and so be it. We'll rebuild our home, and everyone's happy. Everyone pitches in, the village will pitch in, and so that's my point of view. I don't know if that's 100% but being with them is what makes them so happy. They sing all the time. They're amazing singers. So something around that, I think, in terms of how they enjoy each other. The Carver is a really interesting and situation around the learning of the structure of Carver, and it's so structured, even though it looks like everyone's just sitting around, but it's very structured of who sits where and who has it first, and then they tell enough, they just chat, and it's awesome. They just sit there, and they're happy to sit there for a couple of hours talking about anything and everything.
So they're actually creating that space where everyone can talk, which is amazing, because I was talking to someone recently that went away on a boys' weekend, and they ended up sitting down in the evening and having an impromptu, just full-on discussion, and everyone's talking about how they really, really were in that moment, and everyone was just blown away. The next morning everyone felt so much better because all the boys had been able to get out their feelings and express how they really felt, and that's something that's actually quite rare in our New Zealand culture. Is for us, males and females, particularly males perhaps, to really talk about your feelings and really get that out. So they obviously do that regularly. It's a regular thing for them.
I know we talked about it as a referee group, sitting around the campfire and being honest, but it's normally done in a boardroom, and no one wants to be honest. But you actually do sit around a fire. We've been one at Pavina, and you do just start talking. Whereas their fire is a carver bowl, and just we'll chat about how the day went. We don't often do that. So
brilliant, I love that, and they're in the moment. That's two gold things there. Awesome. So
there's a couple of really amazing themes highlight the power of community, the power of communication, and the power of connection. Like that, just you can see how that creates, and just even from your perspective, Jacko, like your experiences, those are the things that have come up that have helped your mindset, and you infuse that across a whole culture. We've created a happy country.
That's right.
There's so much out there we can take.
Definitely.
For ourselves.
Yeah, that's right. It's awesome. And so coaching, obviously you've been asked to coach the Fiji international team and the Drua team. So interesting question for you. When you sat down with Vern Cotter and for the interview, and he asked you, what's your philosophy on coaching? What was your response?
Yeah, it was a pretty intimidating conversation. I've known Vern for a long time, but he's one of the greats, and he's a very strong and assertive man. So going up to his farm and sitting around there, but it was about probably, I hadn't done a lot of coaching, as you well know, because I've been the reffing. I've done Te Puna junior rugby. That was pretty much the extent of it. So to try and say something to Vern that wasn't true would be wrong. So I just said for me it's about relationships. That's why I'm in it. I'm in it because I want to make people better. And you know, in terms of the opportunity to always learn. So it's, you know, probably the three things. So relationship building, obviously always wanting to learn is one of the big things around that. And I think that's one of the things around coaching is that the only way you know if you're learning is if you've got a good relationship, because otherwise people aren't going to tell you the truth. So so one of the biggest things around the Fiji team is first of all trying to understand their culture, because there was no point going in as a Kiwi and not understanding how they work. So that was something I had to work pretty hard in. But also then just forming a relationship with the boys around their own family and their own successes and failures and what works for them. So
getting to know them on a deeper level.
Yeah, and that's no different to the kids that at Te Puna. You know, we, like I said, we had, obviously Jenny was part of it. We had some good parents, but that was only because hopefully, you know, if the parents were happy to be there, then they'd bring the children, then everyone's part of it. So
that's right.
it's no different, I don't think, wherever you go in terms of your philosophy around what coaching is.
Brilliant. So we can add relationships and communication to that awesomeness that we've got already.
That's very cool. I'm quite conscious of time, and I know that we've promised that this is always going to be short and sharp lunch break injection.
Okay.
So I'm just wondering, because we do have a few people live with us who are probably chomping at the bit, Jack, to ask you a question. Does anyone who's with us live want to throw Jacko a curveball or ask him anything? Put him on the spot.
Perfect.
I've got a curveball. One last question for Jacko. What advice would you give your 18-year-old self today?
Probably it's probably no different to what my parents gave me and what I try and give Peyton every day. Like, you know, like first of all, manners cost nothing. You know, so and they get you a long way. So always use them. He's really good at introducing himself.
Yes.
One thing he's got that I don't have is an unbelievable memory. So we're always like, oh, geez, who's that fella, Peyton? He'll just rattle it off. So I think, I wouldn't change too much. Where I was as an 18-year-old, I had a pretty, like I said, a good life and went to Otamoto College. It was a good school. We played good sport, and I think the biggest thing is that you're working for a long time. So like I went to teachers college, but after I worked for a few years. So don't, and I say this to Peyton, like don't rush everything. Like 18, you feel like you should be somewhere or doing something. Well, actually, you know, it doesn't really matter where you are, because you remember when we were sitting there and we thought 50 was bloody retirement home. Well, shit, we're now going to 50th birthday parties and feel like the best and youngest ever. So you know, so as I said to him, just enjoy life and have good friends. You know, like, so obviously we're lucky we've moved from Whakamaramara to Omokoroa now to the mountain, and the whole way they've sort of kept their good friends. So important. Yeah,
amazing. All right, awesome.
That's so great. I think that's just like such a perfect, I don't even think we're going to do a recap, Rachelle. Have great friends and enjoy life is such a perfect full stop.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah. Thank you so much, Jacko. Thank you so much for coming to join us. I feel like you've given a heap of gold nuggets today, and great learning for youth to listen to your rangatahi and also the adults. So thanks so much. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Shell. Good work on everything you're doing. Love it.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks.
And